church light today. My last couple of sermons I thought were pretty heavy with theology, so lightening up a little bit, I think, today. You might need to smile some, so just to let you know. And I'm aware also that we're going to be sharing a meal after church, and then some people may be wanting to watch Colts football when they go into it. I would invite you, if you'd like, either to turn your Bible to the book of Hebrews, or you can watch here on the screen. I'm reading from Hebrews 11, chapter 11, verses 1 through 3. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the convictions of things not seen. Indeed, by faith our ancestors received approval. By faith we understand that the worlds were prepared by the Word of God, so that what is seen was made from things that are not visible. Well, when me and Barb were a young couple, we purchased a GLC. Now, you may not know what a GLC is, so let me explain it to you. It's a Mazda vehicle. Mazda GLC, or the Mazda Great Little Car. And it was just that. It was a great little car, with the emphasis on little. They were probably about the size of a Volkswagen Beetle, maybe a little bit bigger than that, and built a little bit different, but not too much different than that size. They were certainly a little car, a great car, but a little car. And at the time we had that, we had my two daughters and my son, and they were pretty little kids. So when we got in the car to go on vacation or something like that, you had to have stuff roped across the top of the car, the hood, and stuff stuck in a small trunk, and things on the floor, and tucked between people and everything else. I'm sure that neighbors and folks that saw us probably got a real chuckle out of it, seeing us go down the road when we decided to go someplace. It was pretty funny to see. Now, one of the family jokes we have at our house whenever we gather together on holidays, and my children like to poke fun at Dad, is that when it comes time to planning trips, speaking of taking trips in the Mazda, Dad doesn't plan trips really. What I do is just kind of go. And so it's not unusual for me to take off on vacation and not have hotel rooms, condominiums rented, not really know where I'm going precisely. And in fact, when the General Assembly was in Nashville, and I was driving toward Nashville to the General Assembly, where thousands of people I already knew were going to be there, I didn't have a hotel room. Now, as it turned out, I got a hotel room in one of the really nice hotels downtown, cheaper than what the General Assembly had it booked for, so things work out sometimes. But that's pretty constant with me. It is like the title of my sermon, Tourists Don't Know Where They've Been or Where They're Going. And so if you hop in a car with me, that could be the case. You may not know exactly where we're heading off. So one day, I think it was probably on a Saturday, we decided to take the children to the Indianapolis Children's Museum. A great place to go, agreed? And so we went and we got done. We still timed the day, and this is back in the days when gasoline was not close to $4 a gallon, so it wasn't unusual for people to just take rides in their car. And so we decided, I said, we still got time, why don't we take a ride? So we got on to I-70, and the next thing I know, here's the St. Louis Arch. So it was indeed a nice little afternoon ride. Huh? Now it turned out well because we ended up driving up to Hannibal, Missouri, and going through some of the Mark Twain things, and Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn, seeing all those things, and got back. But it's pretty much par for the course for this guy. Also, I can tell you that that's the course for me most of the time, that I don't know the destination when I'm heading there. But my children are pretty confident in it because they have faith that these always work out. Because they have. I mean, my oldest daughter now is 36 or so, and we've never failed to have a place to stay. We've never failed to have a good time and go to some place that was enjoyable. It's just, we a lot of times don't know where that's going to be when we take off. But they have faith that it's going to happen, and eventually things will work out as they hope that it will be an enjoyable time. Hope and faith. My personal story reminds me of a Peanuts cartoon strip that I remember seeing one time. It's old Lucy is involved in it, and Charlie Brown. It's a baseball game, and Lucy's playing right field, I believe. And she's standing out there, and suddenly one of the batters hits the ball. And it's obviously coming right to her. And she gets her mitt, she looks up, waiting for the ball to come. She's got her eye on it, and she's looking, and the ball falls right behind her. So Lucy, being the way she is, she picks the ball up and kind of saunters up to the pitcher's mound where Charlie Brown's got one of those looks on his face. And she says, "Sorry I missed that one, Charlie. I was hoping I'd catch it, but hope got in my eyes." Hope and faith. That's what we're talking about today, is what we probably should be talking about most of the times, hope and faith. Now I'm kind of wondering how many of you would fly in an airplane that's ran by a computer? How many of you would fly in an airplane that's ran by a computer? Well, here I've got news for you. If you fly in an airplane, you're flying an airplane that's ran by a computer. So if you fly, you're doing that. And you're doing it with a level of faith because you have faith that the technology of this big metal hunk will actually be able to stay in the air and fly you from one place to another. You have to have faith in that technology that it will actually work. So unless you're like me that hates to fly, you probably fly some. Also, I'm wondering how many of you pay your bills electronically over the web. I see some hands up, and that's going to increase because more and more all these companies are pressing you to say, we don't want to send you a paper bill. We want you to pay electronically, so whether you want to or not, that's probably going to happen. But here again, it's invisible to you. You can't see your money being transacted even with a check or anything. It just magically happens that you're able to pay those bills. And those of you who already do that, and those who will be doing it in the future, you have faith that it's going to work. That when you pay your Duke Energy bill electronically, it'll actually get paid. Now, I mentioned before that last year at Christmas, because my schedule was so hectic, I shopped in no stores whatsoever at Christmas time. Instead, every Christmas gift that we bought, I purchased from my home office, either from Amazon, JCPenney, or whoever it might be, but I ordered them all online, not knowing anyone who works at Amazon or many of the other companies that I ordered things from, but I had faith that those things would actually end up on my doorstep, and indeed they did. You see, there's a lot of people in our world who snub their nose at religion, and specifically at Christianity. And what's kind of funny to me, those same people, those very same people that snub their nose at us, use the tools that our tribe uses all the time. Faith and hope. You have to have faith to fly. It's kind of a religious experience. You have to have faith and hope that those bills get paid. You have to have faith and hope that when you order those gifts, that they'll actually arrive. So even these people who snub their nose at our faith and use those tools that are so important in being a Christian, faith and hope, really use them all the time. I was thinking the other day that, I don't really stop and think when I get on an elevator. And unless you're a fitness nut, like George, where he wants to climb 7 flights of stairs instead of riding up the elevator. Most of you probably, when you go someplace, get in the elevator, push the buttons, and you have faith, whether you're saying it or not, that you're going to get to the 7th floor. And you hope that nothing happens on the way to stop it from happening. You do it all the time. All the time. Now, I'm a big fan of the Andy Griffin Show. If you remember, some weeks back, I preached an entire sermon from Andy Griffin, but I thought of an episode that locks into this perfectly, and so I thought I'd share a little bit of it this morning as well. It's a story that's really focused around Opie mostly, where Opie meets this new friend called Mr. McBeavy. Maybe as I start telling the story, you'll remember who Mr. McBeavy is. The whole story starts off, excuse me. The story starts off with Opie in a police station talking to Barney. And he's telling Barney about his little black pony that he's been riding. And you know how Barney is. Barney's getting all worked up. And he finally says, well, Opie, I want to see your new little black pony. I want to see you riding. And Andy walks up. And Andy says, well, Opie doesn't have a little black pony. It's his imaginary little black pony that he's going to ride. And Barney, being Barney, gets his feathers ruffled, gets all upset at Opie for telling a fib. And things go on. Well, as they fade in and out, you're led to believe it's a couple of days later, and Opie's back walking into the sheriff's office, and Barney and Andy are standing there, and Opie declares to them, well, I made a new friend in the woods today. He lives in the trees, and he climbs the trees and walks in the trees and has a big, shiny silver hat. His name's Mr. McBeevy. And Andy and Barney kind of look at him, and Barney is really frustrated. Kind of pulls Andy to the side and says, you know that Opie's fibbing. Remember the story he just told us? He's fibbing. You know, we can't have any faith in him because he's not telling us the truth. Andy just kind of blows it off and doesn't worry about it. Well, either that night or the next night, as they clip the scenes, Opie comes in the house at Andy's home, and he's got a brand new shiny quarter and a small little axe. And Andy says, where'd you get this? He said, well, my new friend, Mr. McBeevy, who walks in the trees and has a big shiny silver hat, gave these to me. So Andy starts thinking back about all these things that's happened, and he says, well, I know you're fibbing to me, Opie. Now I'm going to give you a chance here. If you tell me you're lying, everything will be okay, and we'll just accept that you lied to me and we'll let everything go. But if you don't tell me you're lying, then you're going to get punished. Well, I guess Opie had that tension in his life. You know, what do I do here? Do I say I'm lying, and that way I won't get punished and just kind of go on? Or do I stick to my guns and say, you know, no, Mr. McBeevy is my new friend. He gave me this. And so he doesn't, and he sends him off to his room. Well, the next morning, Andy decides he's going to get Opie and Barney, and they're going to drive out to the woods and settle this once and for all. Mostly because Barney blows everything out of proportion. So they get out to the woods and to see this Mr. McBeevy. However, Mr. McBeevy is not in the woods to be seen. And so they kind of put their arms up. Now what Andy and Barney don't know, that Mr. McBeevy really was there. You see, Mr. McBeevy was a telephone man, and he was walking on the trees, which were telephone poles strung through the woods, and he had those things on his feet that allows him to climb up. And so he was walking on the trees. And back in the old days, telephone men wore big silver hats when they worked. So he really was there, and he got to be a friend talking from the trees down to Opie, and he gave him the small axe and the shiny coin, so he really existed, but they couldn't see. So anyhow, they get back home, and Andy sends Opie off to his room. But as Andy sits there and is talking to Aunt Bee, he finally calls Opie back downstairs and says, you know, son, I believe you, and I believe you have this friend, Mr. McBeevy. Barney kind of takes the task on that. He says, why are you doing that? He says, because I believe in my son. I have faith in my son, to tell you the truth. To have faith is to believe in something you can't necessarily see. And hope is to have faith in a future you can't necessarily see. Let me say that again. To have faith is to believe in something you can't necessarily see. And to have hope is to have faith in a future you can't necessarily see. We have a biblical story that most folks know that relates to us pretty well. One of the apostles, disciples, name is Thomas, or we mostly call Doubting Thomas. After Jesus is crucified and dies and rises from the dead, Thomas refuses to believe that this possibly could be Jesus. Huh? This can't be Jesus. I saw him die. I saw him buried. I just don't believe this is him. He says, the only way I'll believe this is him is if I can touch the wounds on his side. And so Jesus allows him to do that. As soon as Thomas touched those wounds, he realizes this is Jesus, and he believes. And what is Jesus' response to Thomas and to all those gathered? It's this: blessed are you who believe because you see. But even more blessed are those who believe who don't see. Blessed are those who believe because you see, but even more blessed are those who believe who can't see. The reality is, in our lives, there are many things that we cannot control, we can't predict. In fact, we have no clue about whatsoever. Yet every day we go about our busy lives, doing things and experiencing things that we don't understand, that we don't see, and we don't know anything about. It's all about faith and hope. Here we are, this motley crew of humans, with all kinds of questions and concerns, problems and desires. And the reality is, none of us really know the outcome of any of it. We can have all the anxiety, all the anxiousness, all the questions, all the concerns, all the problems, all the desires. We want to pile up, and we still really don't know the outcome. We live by faith every day that things will work out. Every day that we live, we hope things will work out. And that's our faith. Like our ancestors in the faith, stories from the Old Testament and New Testament, where people walked faithfully forward in hope that God had something in store for us. We too, as modern Christians, live every day walking faithfully forward, hoping that God has something in store for us. Even though we may have no clue what it is, or we may know what it is, we still walk forward in that faith, in that hope, that what it is God has planned for each and every one of us, what God has planned for this church, what God has planned for this world will work out. It's a matter of faith and hope. We don't know. We have no clue what's going to happen this afternoon. We have no clue what's going to happen tonight. We have no clue what's going to happen a year from now, 10 years from now. We have no clue. We can make assumptions, but we really don't know. It's all about faith and hope. What does God have in store for us? And so on this day, this bright Sunday morning, I would encourage you to keep your faith. Instill the hope in yourself and in others that God is here with us each and every day. That God's will be done, that God does have something in store for us, and it will be fulfilled, even if we don't know what it is. I guess simply what I would say to you is, believe. Believe. This is the Word of God for the people of God.
Praise God.